So a couple things got talked about today already that are such like the most important things for me. Number one was joy, listening to your heart. And number two is, who are you? My bio is pretty basic, and sometimes I talk about my story that led me to here. I might tell you a little bit, and then I want to move us into looking at who are you really under all of this. And the reason why I do that is because I remember all the way from 5 years old when I was in Singapore, and I was born at that point female and given the gender marker girl. And at 5 years old, I said to myself, what's wrong with this planet? Why is it there's only supposed to be two kinds of people? Why is there only supposed to be boy or girl, or man and woman? I just want to be happy. Why can't I just be happy? Now, the subsequent couple decades of then living in a body that just wanted to be happy and being thrown into situations and forced and beaten and told and humiliated by my family, by my people around me, by the church, and then coming to Vancouver at 19 years old and continually being told I had to be a girl, finally had a longer term impact. I forgot my desire of 5 years old of just wanting to be happy. So I I gave in, right? I gave in, I played being a girl. I still didn't understand what it was, but clearly the whole world is full of girls and boys. It's pretty easy to see what a girl's supposed to be, and I'll just follow that one. And so I did that for a long time. And when I did come out in 2001 as a trans man, I transitioned at that point. I am the first Asian trans man to come out in Vancouver, BC. And for those of you, it's now 2023. Back, maybe 6 years ago, people were not really sure, even then, what those words were. But, maybe you might not. So I'll quickly define for you. A trans man is one who was born biologically female and has transitioned and now lives as a man. So when I transitioned in 2001, all the hardship got even more intense because I'm of color. And now I was attempting to live as a man. Now I'm not a white guy, so I'm not very hairy. And hair is a big marker for masculinity or for man. And I remember when I went to one of my surgeons, the endocrinologist, the psychologist. He said to me, so are you ready? Like, are you really ready to become a man? Are you ready? Are you getting ready to be big? Are you going to be ready to be big and smelly and hairy? And I looked at him and I said, dude, I'm becoming a guy. I'm not becoming a white guy. (2001) Vancouver, BC. Yes, this was when that was. So I knew at that point the model for trans men was very white. And I was the only one in Vancouver. We were a pioneering group of people at that point. We were a really powerful time in the evolution that has brought us to this current gender conversation we have now. And I remember there was about 5 of us trans guys. And my guy buddies were all white, and they were like sprouting hair, and everybody's no problem, sir, 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 sir. And they look at me and they go, ma'am. I'd be like, my 5 hairs. But that was my life. So for a good 10 years, I was not read, I was not acknowledged, and I was not seen. Not because I wasn't seen as a man. Now I can think about it and go, oh, they weren't even seeing human being. So that little clip there, which I did in my little crinkly purple shirt, was a short of the experience of when human beings don't see human beings. And I wasn't seen because I was neither presenting as man nor presenting as woman. I was what people would now call, in this beautiful age of the changing times of gender, a non-binary person. But there was no space for that group of gender expression at that point. So human beings would not see Tien, the soul. They'd spend all their time, when they saw me, staring at me, and then they'd stare at my chest, and then they'd stare at my crotch, and would spend the whole time scanning. People never spoke to Tien. People were like, but was still scanning. And for a good 8 years of that, everywhere, there was no bathrooms, nowhere to go. I was mocked, I was humiliated, I was, made fun of in public. There was no gender markers for me. I couldn't change my name on the bank, I had to keep changing names, like that, right? And the family disowned me in Singapore. I came out in the gay and lesbian community, and because trans people were very new in the community, they didn't like trans people at that point. So I had to leave my community that was my family of 10, 12 years and attempt to live a life in Vancouver as a man, while people never really saw Tien. And through those intense 7 years, I started to understand the foundational needs of a human being. What is one of the foundational needs of a human being? Yeah. You said that right away. And we always forget that part. We see number one as home. Food and shelter, home and food. And then we forget love and or being acknowledged and being seen. So I had a great experimental time of a few years of understanding human nature and what we do and what happens to a human person when we're not seen. So after that, compounded with all the losses and financial problems that I was going through, spending way too much time and money trying so hard to be a man, I did eventually in 2009 attempt suicide. So I've been there. And the morning after, my soul said to me, Tien, you're still alive. What do you want to do now? And I said, in despair, covered in tears and snot and blood, I don't care anymore. I just don't fucking care. I just want to be happy. And soul or God or whatever you want to call it spoke to me and said, okay, Tien, promise me this one thing. If you're going to stick around, make sure you have a freaking good time. Otherwise, I give you my blessings right now. You can go home to your maker. And in that moment, I chose. I chose that all the hardship I was suffering for decades because people treated me a certain way, all the hardship of racism, transphobia, homophobia, sexism, loss of family, poverty, humiliation, all that stuff that people did to me, and I internalized, I said, enough. Whatever. I'm just gonna be happy. And yeah, Jennifer, joy, right? What's gonna make me happy? Now, it didn't take that hard for me to discover what makes me happy, because I remember that little 5-year-old saying, I just want to be happy. And I knew what made me happy, and I just listened. So whatever it was, and whatever made me happy at that moment, I'm just going to do it. So if Spirit said, go ride your bike, okay, I'll ride my bike. Go and poke in the plant and, play with some soil. Yeah, okay, go do that. Or go to the studio and make some beautiful art. Go do that. So being happy for me has now become the most important thing. And one of the things now that this permits me to have and access is what I really, really want to do. And for me, understanding that gender is something that keeps us a little bit further away from who we really are is now become a huge message for me to share with others. Yeah, we understand trans man, it's all good, wherever we're at right now, but I have a question for all of you right now. Now, I'm sure all of you know something in this new evolved gender conversation, right? You must be aware of trans people. Maybe a kid of yours is asking to be called by a different pronoun or changing their name. Maybe a friend is transitioning. Maybe you know the word non-binary and NB and gender fluid. Yes? Show of hands to see if people see. This is so great. 20 years ago, it was not possible. They were like, what? Trans man? What? What? That? Oh my God. So I dreamt about this years ago, that this is where we would be at. And there's still a lot more work to come. But at least now we're aware of the diversity that's actually available and who all the different people are becoming into. But now that we do know about all this diversity, my question now is what now is gender to you? What does it mean? What does gender mean? And this is the interactive portion of this. So please, share. What does gender mean to you? You said that? Thank you. It's a social construct. Explain a little bit more what you mean by that. Ah, Mike. Mike, are you going to be the runner?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, social construct.
So what does a social construct mean?
I have the curse of having traveled to parts of the world where if you were born a physical female, you're property, or you're treated as an it. And the gender label was just simply the reason why they were told to be either a piece of property or the house slave, whatever it is. And it was a label, and anyone that wanted it could be that. I see that also play out in prisons as well. It's a thing where if you get the label as the cell block bitch, you're the woman. It's just a label you can put to someone. It doesn't actually matter what's between their legs, and that's. Excellent. I know I'm the odd one out there. I've just traveled enough where I've seen that as a label, and I don't really ascribe it to trans or the Team Rainbow rights. I just simply look at it as a weapon used against people. So I know I'm the odd duck.
Good, thank you. So we kind of got that idea, the social construct, where it's a label and it's got nothing to do with what sex organs you have. Excellent. Anybody else? What is gender to you? Thank you. What does gender mean to you? It's a box. Yeah. And what happens in this box?
I can't be free to be who I really am.
Yes. Excellent. Yes. It's a series of characteristics.
Right. Something is either tough, and that's masculine, or something is soppy, and so that's feminine.
Yeah.
So those characteristics sit in those boxes.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have any last thing to say about what gender is to you? Yes, somebody up there.
Hold on. The last time I ran upstairs, I fell. Who is it?
Much like all of the other stuff, it's an description, a place where you are and a place where other people will see you.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that is there. It is a quick read. Just a marker.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, people will take it to embody.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
Oh.
So it's a description, descriptor, and yes, once again, more construct, right? What people do with it, that's up to other people, and some people use it to mock you, to put you in a box, to characterize you. So, given that gender, thank you, all of you, for that. Does anybody else have anything other than that to say about gender? Yes.
Definitely, it's an identity in a box, as other people have said, but also naively, I find it hard to see how people get along, even with themselves or with others, without that bundle of characteristics or traits, or because largely society runs on it. So to what extent it is necessary or not, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that questioning, right? So we're actually living in a really amazing time. And what I call this period is the transitional period. Everything that we now know about what gender is collapsing. The old paradigm around gender, which means characters, traits, meanings, constructs, how people relate to each other based on gender, is all starting to fall down. So it's transitional. Why? Because transitions are awkward and challenging, uncomfortable, upsetting, and all of that. But I know, because I've lived in this world and been aware of this since I was 5, that this world of why is there only 2 types is extremely limiting. And so I know that there is something so much more. So if we were to say that gender is all a construct, which means at some point we made it up. It's not real. And every culture all over the world has our own different codes based on gender. Now, I won't say that there aren't. I always like to give a little bit of percentage of a possibility of anything else. For example, I'll say, the rule of gravity is no matter how enlightened you are, you jump up 40 stories, you will fall down. But I won't say it's 100% people. I'll say 99.9%. To give space for the possibility that maybe somebody has mastered flight. So the same with gender. Yes, we genderize ourselves in all sorts of cultures all over the world, but I'm sure that there's some people somewhere who don't live in those constraints and those labels. However, most of us do, and here we are in North America. We do have very specific codes and labels. So if we were to say that gender is a construct, and that you have believed all these years that you are a woman, or that you are a man, and I'm telling you now, that's not real. It's all a construct, and it's all a lens. Who are you? The moment you came out of your mother's womb, most of you were pulled out, your legs were spread open, and the doctors and all the humans around, the adults around, looked at your genitalia and said, "It's a girl," or "It's a boy." And from that moment, you were pulled out of the womb and thrown into a box called boy and girl. And you were expected to, and you were told to, and you were forced to live according to all those rules. We know those very well, don't they? Men shove their emotions. Yes? Men are tough. Women are wimpy and soft. What are some of the things that we hear around all of us that's a gendered truth? Come on, we know it well. As sexism is starting to break down, we're hearing it. Women are starting to become a lot more free. Why? Because under this world of we thought that we are a gender, men believed that they had more power over women. And then can continue to teach their sons that. And the women continue to teach their children, girl child, something else. So if I once again say to you that you were thrown into a box, and then over time, you probably fought against it for a little bit, because every child just wants to be happy, yes? And then at some point you gave up. And or maybe you were told you were a girl and maybe you happened to like pink. Then it worked. Or maybe you really liked that little Barbie. And so it worked. Or maybe you were a boy and you really liked that Tonka truck. And so certain things about those gender traits worked for you. And others didn't work for you. And you shoved it away, or you put it away, or you said, "I'll never, ever play with that Barbie again." Why? Because someone just laughed at me for playing a Barbie, and I'm supposed to be a boy. So if everybody did their little homework in your head and looked at all the things you were told you are not supposed to do, and not just do, what you're not supposed to be and feel and think and act and sit and talk and relate the jobs you're supposed to have, how much value you have and or not value, all of those lists. If we all did our homework and looked at that based on some constructed view that you are a gender, I bet you that list is going to be very, very long. And there are so many rules there that you kind of bought into. Consider that all the clothes we're wearing right now was not chosen by you. Someone else chose that for you, and you believed it was yours. Now, I didn't transition to man because there was anything wrong with me. I always knew I was in a body and at certain parts, and then the world decided it was a girl. And I tried really hard to live like a girl. I did. I tried very hard. And even when I came out as a lesbian in 1999 and lived as a lesbian for about 10 years, I was trying very hard still. Yeah? But at least in that community, their expression for women was much larger. The box was very large. So there was space there for me, even in my masculine ways. I could, hang out in there and still be a woman. But we still believed that sex organs meant gender. And when I knew that that was no longer who I was, I transitioned. But I didn't transition because I thought there was something wrong with me. I transitioned because there was no space for non-binary at that point. Plus, Asian. You think you'll beat me up because I'm a trans man already? Yeah, and then let's put the colored part into that. So for my own safety, I chose to transition as man. And it happens that I really like the gendered expression as man. I think I look good in man clothes. I do. And at the same time, I know I am not this. Because consider that gender is completely made up and who you are is entirely just your choice and your soul's true expression. Does gender have anything to do with who you are? If gender is just the way you walk, the way you sit, how you like to dress, the kind of colors you like, does that mean anything about who you are? Does that mean then that your gender could actually be whatever you want it to be? Hence the world of the gender non-binary folks and the gender fluid, because they are starting to experience it's all a choice. And it doesn't mean anything. It's a choice. It's not who they are. When I met some non-binary folks, I think 7 years ago, 8 years ago, myself and another pioneering trans man, we were in an event, and I said to him, "What's that?" "That's not us. They're kind of like us, but they're not." And he said, "No, they're not. But we gave birth to them." And my heart just jumped. That 5-year-old kid, me, said, "Why is there only 2 kinds?" Suddenly went, "Look, we're growing. It's not just 2 kinds. Look, right there. Yay." My commitment to exploring this gender conversation, my commitment to transcending gender, is not because I want us to, it's not from the place of let's have more trans this and non-binary that and, any of that. That's all part of the process. I fully support people to express themselves. But my purpose is so that when I talk to you, the same reason why that video was there, I'm now talking to you. The soul in Jennifer's body. Can you imagine if you talk to your partner or your friend or your child as a soul? If you were to look at them, your loved one, and said, who are you? You're not this skin sack. You're not this eyes and face and skin color and gender. You're not your genitalia. You're not your clothes. Who are you? So if we can consciously remove our lens of gender, how we relate to ourselves will transform. How we relate to our loved ones will transform. And this is a conscious effort because we live in a world where gender is still so binary, man, woman, and now we have the trans and NB. And sometimes you think you can identify us and you'll be like, oh, okay, I'll put that in that box. You're still doing the same thing, right? Now you've just got more boxes, but it's still a gender. That's a norm. Oh, that's a they, them. Oh, okay. I will treat them like this because I think I know what they, them is. Oh, that's a trans woman. Oh, okay, I'll treat them like this. So we're still doing the same thing with all these gendered boxes. And that's okay. We are evolving, and some of it's a mammalian instinct that we need to, intercept and learn to alter as we evolve. But if there's anything I want to leave you with, and it is a little bit of a fearful place, because if you thought you know who you are for 30-something years, 50-something years, 70-something years, based on the fact that you think you are a woman, or based on the fact that you think you're a man, it will take courage for you to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, who am I if I'm not my gender? And I promise you, that world is not a box. It is anything you want it to be, and it's entirely up to you.